way, like Sam Adams Brewery, you should check out the tap room. We pass it on the tour and I'll point it out to you. You can sample a lot of the beers they make here. Across the street though, they also serve Sam Adams Brewery. Also with a portrait of Paul Revere, which makes me laugh, but the sign there, it's very bad. Do not get mad at me if you hate the lame dad jokes. As you go into the Beantown pub, they say, Beantown pub, we're the only place in the entire world where you can drink a cold Sam Adams across from a cold Sam Adams. There you go, there's their very lame joke. But Sam, as far as history goes, is remarkably important, like genuinely the single most important man in achieving America's independence from Great Britain. And that's not just me saying that, that was the opinion of other founding fathers. Thomas Jefferson would say that Samuel Adams was the patriarch of the American Revolution. His cousin John Adams said that he was born to cut the cord between Great Britain and the colonies. And all of this is very true, but it's important to note that Samuel Adams was extremely controversial in the 1700s for this stance, and even other signers of the Declaration of Independence thought Sam was a bit out there with his views against Great Britain. To give you a good idea of Samuel Adams' politics, because his whole life he is driven by his goal of being a politician. He is born in Boston in 1722 to kind of upper middle class beginnings. He goes off to Harvard in the 1740s for his master's degree, and he writes his thesis on the subject, would it be legal for the colonies to cut political ties with the British crown? Writing that 30 years before he signs the Declaration. Now after graduating, he is a tremendous failure, quite literally. He runs two businesses into major bankruptcy. He becomes the town tax collector for Boston in his 30s. He thinks taxes are dumb, so he stops collecting them from anyone for like 2 years, which was probably grand news for the citizens of Boston, but he ends up liable for about $30,000 of debt to the British government. By 45, records literally describe Adams as, quote, penniless and destitute. However, his dreams come true when the British start to tax us, and he will be elected to our House of Representatives as the town clerk of the Boston meeting. Samuel Adams becomes a superstar, basically overnight. He was incredibly well-spoken, as charismatic, and fundamentally understood what made the average person in Boston mad about these new British policies. So soon, dozens of people are heading to Faneuil Hall to hear Sam give his fiery speeches against the British government. He is openly opposing laws made by the king and the royal government, getting a lot of controversy from back over in England. And Sam also was a great writer, writing in every pamphlet in Boston, starting to convince many average citizens to join in large-scale rebellions against the British government. And Sam, outside of doing all this, is the leader of that group, the Sons of Liberty. So any riot that is ever planned in Boston, Sam's the mastermind behind it. By 1770, this meant that King George was already saying Sam should be arrested for treason for speaking out against him so much, and that maybe would have happened if it wasn't for dramatic events that took place in March of that year. You can see a little tombstone next to Samuel Adams, and those are the graves of the victims of the Boston Massacre. We'll get into that story more, but in March of 1770, 5 civilians are shot and killed by occupying British troops. This would be the first blood drawn in the conflict between the colonies and Great Britain, and it would be Samuel who deemed it the Boston Massacre. 10,000 citizens would march behind Samuel and the 5 coffins of the victims as they are buried here, and in that moment, Adams realized no matter how revolutionary the colony of Massachusetts was, this would never achieve his end goal of independence. This had to be a colonial-wide affair. The issue was, in 1770, it is not the 13 colonies united, it is the 13 extremely separate colonies who view themselves very differently and basically as their own countries. It would take a lot to get us all on the same page. Sam Adams would start something called the Committee of Correspondence, linking in communication every major revolutionary from each of the colonies. Eventually, this brings us to in-person meetings in Philadelphia of those representatives. Eventually, that evolves in June of 1776 into a debate of should we declare independence or not. At first, no one wants to declare independence. It is a very unpopular idea. It took a lot of convincing from men like Sam that if we don't do this now, it would never happen. After independence is achieved, Adams doesn't desire grand fame or fortune. He doesn't want to become president, but he never leaves politics behind. At 71, upon the death of John Hancock, he is elected to be our second governor. He serves as our governor until about 80, and during his term as governor of Massachusetts, he becomes one of the top advocates for the passage of the Bill of Rights being attached to the passage of the Constitution. So Sam did a tremendous amount in his life, and now we're like, cool, Sam the beer guy. But